guess it was all just some kind of bad dream.
Sky, is that you? Could you grab me a glass of what?
Recently, I've noticed that I have a bit of a reputation as an RPG guy, and while I do enjoy a good RPG, I usually don't end up finishing them. Take a look for yourself. Here are all of the RPGs that I can remember playing at some point in my life, and here are the ones that I have rolled credits on. And for good measure, here are the non-Pokemon games that I have seen the endings of. Honestly, I hate this about myself, and I feel like there is so much I am missing out on as a result, and games like Xenoblade Chronicles prove that point to me even further. Xenoblade Chronicles had been on my unfinished list for nearly 7 years. This wasn't for a lack of trying either. I started this game a number of different times, and to be honest, I'm not quite exactly sure what kept me from completing this game. I had heard very little about this game around the time of its launch, other than that it was a part of a group of games that fans were petitioning for release in the West. The original was released in 2010, and it was localized into English in 2012, but it wasn't until 2014 that the game really took off in popularity. In the latter half of the year, it was announced that the main character, Shulk, would be a fighter in the upcoming Super Smash Bros. Game. This sparked a ton of hype for the series, and it just so happened that one of the best Let's Play YouTubers had started a playthrough of the game earlier in the year. Chugga Conroy is actually where I found out about the series, and when the Smash announcement hit, many others found out about the series through Chugga. Alongside all this, another title in the series as well as a port of the game to the 3DS was announced. Xenoblade fans were eating good, and they continued to eat good from then on. A sequel was released in 2017 with DLC for the game later on. A Switch remaster of the original game in 2020, and another fighter from the series was added to Smash Bros. In 2021. Now that we've covered the quick and dirty history of the series, let me tell you my own experience with it. Like I said earlier, I was introduced to Xenoblade Chronicles through Chugga Conroy. I had been following Chugga for quite some time, and when he first started his Let's Play of Xenoblade, I instantly fell in love with it. A couple months later, while traveling, I went to a GameStop and happened upon a copy of Xenoblade Chronicles. I purchased it immediately, and when I got home, I tried it out for myself. However, that was only my first attempt at playing the game. This is a pretty common thing for me. I've actually tried to play many of the games I showed earlier multiple times. This first time with Xenoblade was no different. I played roughly 2 hours of the game and didn't pick it up again. I was still watching Chugga's Let's Play diligently, and after a couple more months, I had heard of an HD texture mod that could be installed to the game if you were running an emulated version of it on PC. I got that all working and once again played for about 2 hours and then stopped playing completely. Fast forward to the launch of the 3DS version of the game, I picked this up day one, and for the first time ever, I had gotten past the 2-hour mark. This time around, I played closer to 10 hours of the game's story. I remember the reason for stopping this time though. I had hit a wall with the gameplay and started to struggle with every boss I had to fight. I actually put down the 3DS version of the game because it was too hard for me at the time. After this, the Xenoblade series remained a dormant part of my memory for multiple years. My re-entry to the series happened when Xenoblade Chronicles 2 was released. I was stoked about this game to the point that I had started my own Let's Play of it as soon as I got my hands on the game. I played for some time, but once again after about 10 hours, I hit a wall and I couldn't get over it no matter what I tried. At this point, I was dedicated to the series. I knew that someday I would finally finish playing a game in this franchise for myself and not rely on watching others play through them on YouTube. Finally, that time came with the release of Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition. I wasn't going to settle for nothing but the best either. I pre-ordered the limited edition straight from Europe and had it delivered to my door in the United States for a hefty sum, and I don't regret this purchase in the slightest. Of course, if you had followed this channel, you'd know that around the time of this game's release date, I was busy with 2 other JRPGs that I actually did finish. These 2 games began a trend with me which has stuck for the most part, of finishing games that I start. There are still a couple games I have tried since, but the majority of the games I've started since Persona 5 Royal, I have stuck with to the end. And I'm happy to report that Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition is one of those titles. I started the game in August of 2020 and played for about 10 hours and started having the same issues as I had on the 3DS. This time was different. This time I wouldn't be deterred by the difficulty of the game. This time I would complete the game. I struggled for another 2 hours, and then I learned the secret to playing Xenoblade Chronicles, and any game for that matter. It's simple, just learn how to play the game. As soon as I figured out the mechanics, a switch was flipped and my love for this game was renewed. After learning how to properly play Xenoblade, the game finally opened up to me. For years, I had known how expansive the world of the Bionis and the Mechonis was, but it wasn't until now that I was truly able to experience it for myself. Come to find out that Xenoblade has a bit of a running theme where the tutorials aren't always the best way to learn how to play. Go figure. In my pursuit of trying to figure this game out, I came across a YouTube channel that had all the glorious information I thirsted for, laid out for me on a pedestal. This channel belonged to the Xenoblade speedrunner, Enel. I first found this video about understanding combat in Xenoblade, and from there I devoured their channel. I quickly found videos explaining how to use each individual character in combat, as well as items they can use efficiently. I then learned the other mechanics of the game, such as gem crafting and the affinity system. It's all thanks to Enel that I was able to enjoy Xenoblade Chronicles as thoroughly as I have. So in conclusion, go check out Enel's channel on YouTube, and as always, keep it rad. All jokes aside, if you have any inclination of ever playing Xenoblade Chronicles, I highly recommend that you stop watching this video, go play about 10 to 15 hours of the game, or at least until it gets hard, watch Enel's videos that explain the mechanics of the game, finish the game, and then come back and watch this video. This way you can have your own experiences with the game, and then we can all reminisce together on what makes Xenoblade Chronicles so great. Welcome back to everybody that took my advice, and if you never left, hopefully you've played this game before. If not, I don't really plan on getting into spoilers until later, so you're good for now. But let's be honest, you were gonna stay for the spoilers anyway. Whatever. Let's just get on with the video.
So you're not concerned at all by the fact that there's two of us? Not particularly. I mean, like, there have been some weird things happening lately. Like, Sky's been asleep for some time now, but maybe something weird just happening to him too. Strange. Anyway, what is this? I've never seen a game like this before. What? Oh, Xenoblade Chronicles? It's a role-playing game. What are you doing it? I mean, it looks pretty and all, but all you're doing is wandering around. Let me show you.
The gameplay loop can easily be broken down into fighting, exploring, and questing. These three things encompass a bunch of different modes of play, but each way the game is played can be placed into one of these categories. They can and will be done in any order at any time while playing through the story of the game, but for now, let's look at each of these in the order I first presented them in, starting with fighting. Fighting is both the most complicated and most fulfilling factor of Xenoblade Chronicles. While it can be simplified into just hitting things until they die, it is also much more riveting when you understand how to properly hit things till they die. You could in all honesty play this game without ever knowing how the game intends for you to play it by simply getting over leveled for every fight so you can hit every boss till it's dead. But there is something oh so satisfying about being able to take down a monster that is 5 to 10 levels higher than your party's current level. The combat in Xenoblade is probably my favorite out of any game I've ever played. It's like a symphony. The orchestra is made up of the items, party, and attacks, each fulfilling their own role and amplifying each other to reach their full potential. However, it does take understanding, the right equipment, and practice before you can efficiently take on opponents. To break it down in layman's terms, Xenoblade falls somewhere between an action RPG and a turn-based RPG. The gameplay is actually more comparable to a MOBA than that of a traditional RPG. Combat is done in real time, and the characters will automatically attack enemies within range. The player is given an ability palette where they can choose a specific ability called an art for their character to perform. After the art is used, it will have to cool down before it can be used again. Each character has their own sets of arts, and they all perform a distinct role in the party. To add upon that, each character can be equipped with armor, weapons, and gems that can improve their stats. Getting specific equipment for each individual character may take some time, but when you enhance what they do best, the results are significant. Let's take Dunban here for an example. Dunban is a unique kind of tank who specializes in dodging attacks. His goal is to draw aggro and dodge the enemy's attacks. He naturally has higher stats to evade an enemy's attack, but with the help of some items, he can avoid being hit more frequently and still dish out massive damage. It's incredibly fun to play as or alongside Dunban because of this ability, as well as the rest of the cast. All of the characters have something that makes them unique and fun to play with. Xenoblade limits players to 3 characters per party formation, and it's quite enjoyable to find arrangements that work together. This does, however, bring up one of my gripes with the game. There are some fights, specifically story progression fights, that can be a bit of a challenge. This reason, in addition to not understanding combat, was why I had stopped playing in the past, and it wasn't until my time with the game on the Switch that I realized the problem. You can go into a fight at the same level or even higher as your opponent just to get demolished. I found that in most cases, it was because I had to think of counters to these tougher fights. When I was faced with one of these difficult enemies, I would figure out their weaknesses and then purposely lose so that I could get properly equipped to exploit their vulnerabilities in the next fight. In retrospect, this really isn't all that bad of an issue, though I guess I still would have liked the ability to change things during these troublesome encounters.
And that's just the fighting. It's so cool, man. What else is there to see? There's loads more, but I think I'm gonna take a break for now. Well, come on, man. We're just getting to the good stuff. Well, don't worry. We'll get to it later. But I want to make a replica of the Monado. What for? It's kind of my thing.
When I first started watching Chugga Conroy's Let's Play of Xenoblade Chronicles all those years ago, there was one thing in particular that stood out to me out of everything in this game.
And look ahead. If you can see it, 99% of the time, you can go to it.
The sheer scale of this game blew me away. I'd seen open world games at this point, but Xenoblade left me speechless. Even to this day, I'm still left in awe at how vast the world in this game is. Besides the fact that it can run on a Wii, the Mad Lads even went a step further and put this colossal game on the 3DS. The world in Xenoblade Chronicles is impressive to say the least, both visually and practically. The sense of scale is unmistakable. This is apparent within the first hour of gameplay. Around that first hour mark, you'll find yourself on a breathtaking outlook of the area that you've just been exploring. You can pinpoint each location with surprising clarity and can make note of locations you have yet to visit. Just like Chugga said, 99% of the time if you can see a location, you can probably go to it. This also applies to areas that seem as if they were simply there as a backdrop to the wide open world. With each new location, you can see even more of the world, as well as get glimpses of what might be to come. Somewhere around the 25-hour mark, there is a point where you can view your entire adventure up to that point, in much the same way you did just after playing for 1 hour. Basking in the view is one of the ways the game helps players catch their breath, and this specific moment lets players reminisce on their journey. You can visibly see locations you had explored prior in the game, and speaking of these locations, it wouldn't be a Xenoblade video without going on about the astonishing visually appealing vistas. Not only are the views an incredible sight to behold on their own, depending on things like the time of day and the weather, they can transform into something completely unrecognizable to what they were before. And of course, the incredible soundtrack highlights the set pieces tenfold. When I finally played and finished Xenoblade, it was with the definitive edition on the Switch. A lot of people do prefer the original art style found with the Wii version of the game, but personally, I prefer the definitive edition graphics better. Regardless of your preference, there is no denying that Xenoblade Chronicles is stunning.
What are you doing, man? That's my game! It's your save, too. I figured you'd never get around to finishing it, and I wanted to see what was next, so I decided to do it myself. Well, I guess you do have a point. I do have a hard time finishing games. Well, what happened? How did the story get to this? Let me tell you.
Being an RPG, one could assume that Xenoblade is going to have a good story. And it does. Being an RPG from Japan, you could also make the assumption that it's going to have some crazy twists as well as some interesting moments. And it does. I don't think that Xenoblade has the greatest story of any RPG, and it's not even the best of its series. But it's still pretty darn good. The story starts as a relatively straightforward revenge quest following the shocking murder of the main character Shulk's childhood friend. It evolves into much more than that as it goes on, culminating in the classic JRPG trope of killing a god. Along the way, fulfilling side quests as per usual to any typical RPG. For me, the side quests were not too memorable save for a few, but I did complete every menial task that I came across while playing. I didn't do every side quest, but I did do every one that I could find. The main story is pretty good, but I did feel that there were some places that dragged on. There was, however, one huge thing that kept me engaged the whole time through. I know that I've used this line before, but it holds true even for this game. The part of the story that I enjoyed the most were the characters. Each one of them is so endearing. I love their personalities, and I especially love their relationships with each other. They clearly care a lot for one another, and the way it is portrayed in the game is wholesome and uplifting. I absolutely adore the characters in Xenoblade Chronicles. They made the game memorable for me. From their different personalities to their unique fighting styles, all the way down to their goofy battle quips. They each have their moments in the story as well, exemplifying who they are and what they could become. My favorite character is Melia. She spends the game trying to find her place in the world, and through all of her setbacks, she is able to stand tall when her team needs her. But for real, more than half of the population of her race died in the blink of an eye, and she was still able to press on. Luckily, in Definitive Edition, there is an epilogue story added for Melia where she gets to have some closure.
Nene just want to see smiling face of Miss Melia, bright as sun rays.
And who doesn't? Xenoblade Chronicles is a special video game to me, and it also represents many different journeys for me. The quest to finally play and finish the game for myself. The hunt for the limited edition exclusive to Europe. The adventure of making videos on the internet with my friends, and ironically using one of the battle themes from this game as our outro. And of course, the journey found within the game that touched my heart on a multiple of occasions. The overarching theme of self-worth and standing up to things that stand in our way are especially moving to me. I love this game, and I'm extremely grateful that I can share what makes it so special to me with all of you.
Man, that was something else. I don't even understand everything, but man, that was quite the ride. Yeah, like my mind's kind of just like right now. You know what? I bet Thane would really like this game. I'm gonna go tell him about it. Wait, I forgot to tell you! Hey Thane, I gotta tell you about this game! What happened? Where is he? Thane is dead.
Thank you all for watching our video on Xenoblade Chronicles. I loved making this video, and it sure was a long time coming. If you liked what you saw, subscribe to the channel for more. We make videos like this all the time, so stay tuned for more. Shout out to our Patreons who support us every month. Subscribe to our Patreon where you can get your name at the end of our videos, see behind the scenes, and get access to exclusive episodes of our podcast. Thank you again for watching, and as always, keep it rad.